Hi YouTube, it's Emma Blue Eyes 10 here, and this is a response video to the Underground members Kisame Unlimited and Spideness 24 on Don't Tell Me How to Run My Deck. Now, I have to admit, this video might turn into a mini rant because this is quite a personal thing to talk about, really, because every deck's unique to a lot of people and everything, and of course some people can take real big offence at how people can tell to run decks and everything, and some people are okay with taking advice. So this is just my response video, my views, my opinions, and as I said, I'm really sorry if it does turn into a wee mini rant because it ticks me off greatly when people try to tell me or dictate to me how to run my deck. So I do hope you guys enjoy. But before we start the video, I just want to show you something really quickly. I don't think I've shown this. I hope you guys can see that alright. That is a chrome figurine of a Blue Eyes White Dragon from the Season 0 series. I got this off eBay for a couple of £, plus a Red Eyes Black Dragon figurine as well, which I gave to my sister because she loves the Red Eyes Black Dragon. So just wanted to show you guys the newest collection to my Blue Eyes Dragon. So up there nice and safe. Anyway, let's get off the video anyway. Right, don't tell me how to run my deck is quite a sensitive topic in some places in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, a lot of people are quite happy to run with mainstream decks and are very familiar with mainstream decks, meta decks that are pretty much have very similar builds, maybe 1 or 2 card changes and everything, because I explained in another video, there should be a link to this video somewhere around on the page here, about how most of the deck can be about, like, say it's mainly like half of it's probably theme cards, the rest of it's staple cards, and then it's only the last 5 or 6 cards in the deck that can actually be personalised by said player, that's their personal tech choices and everything. And of course, as I said, with a lot of meta decks and stuff like that, they all have that kind of standard build nowadays, where you can't really copy a winning deck to say the least, without it mostly being the same as everybody else who happens to be using that deck as well. But when it comes to personalised decks or fun decks or unique decks that are built by a player, when other duelists see something that is similar to another build but not the same, you know, some people think it's a cool idea, they can get inspiration from that, others can be very offended by it. For example, as you guys know, I run Blue Eyes White Dragon, right? And I've also got a fun Crystal Beast deck, and I'm currently in the middle of building Hieratics, or the Hieroglyph Dragon deck, and again, that's a fun build. I'm not building it competitively, I'm just building it the way I want to build it. Now, Blue Eyes Dragons, there are many forms of Blue Eyes Dragons. You know, there's Blue Eyes Chaos Dragons, there's Blue Eyes Lightning Disaster Dragon, there's Blue Eyes Control, there's fun Blue Eyes decks where it's just like fan based and everything, there's Hopeless Dragon, Blue Eyes Dragon decks, there's the one I really hate, the Blue Eyes Exodia FTK. I really hate that deck with a passion. I just don't like it at all, so I'm not going to even go there with that deck at all. But anyway, most of the builds of Blue Eyes Dragons that I have seen on YouTube and in gameplay and everything are really cool, and I like them all, and every single one of them's different and unique. For example, a good friend of mine, the Egyptian Prodigy, has built quite a few variants of of his own Blue Eyes White Dragon deck. I've seen a Hopeless variant, I've seen a Dragoonity variant, I've seen a Light and Darkness Disaster Blue Eyes Dragon variant, and he's a really good duelist. So again, there's going to be a link to his channel somewhere if you want to go and check him out. He's a really good duelist. So yeah, I have seen loads of different decks, and I sometimes make suggestions to these comments, or to the decks anyway, and you know, I'll say like, oh, maybe you can try this card or you can try that card, and I'll always say, if you don't want to follow the advice, you don't have to. It's entirely up to you how you run your deck. And I do get a few people sending me some deck lists of Blue Eyes Dragons, or just dragons in general, asking for my help on the matter, because I'm so comfortable with dragon decks that I can pretty much, well, I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything, I'm just saying that because I've played with them for so long, I've got a relatively good knowledge of them and how they work, and I can actually help others build decks, even though if they're not Blue Eyes, if they're Chaos or Disaster or Meta or Fun or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But the one thing I hate, I mean, I love helping out other people when I can and when I get the chance to, but the one thing I hate is when I do ask for help on my decks and people dictate about how to run the deck. Now, as you know, my Blue Eyes Dragons deck is a completely different build from meta, but it still performs quite well in a competitive sense because I go to tournaments, I do pretty well with it. I'm constantly updating this style of a deck. I'm keeping up to date and all that. I sometimes ask you guys for your opinions on what cards might be better for the deck, what alternative cards of certain ones I have are better for the deck and everything like that. As a lot of people have said, there is a fine line between offering advice and then there's the other side where people will tell you how to run the deck. They will say, you must run this, you have to run that, you must do this if you want to win. And that's the key difference between building a deck your way and being told how to do something. It depends on what you actually want to do with the deck. Are you just playing fun? Or are you playing to win all the time? Now, if you're playing to win all the time, obviously you want to take the best advice given to you. But at the same time, you still don't want to be told what to do. All you have to say is look, back off. I'm running it the way I think is best, to win. So I'll do it that way. And of course, if you find that's not the best way, then you can always go back and say, right, okay, your advice was correct. I'll try this next time and see how I do. When it comes to the fun side of it, there's some players who are so focused on the winning side of things that they forget that in fun play, it doesn't matter if you win or lose, as long as you're having fun with the deck, that's the most important thing. And that's where people can get a bit pissy, to say the least, about how to run certain decks. Now, of course, as I keep saying, I don't run Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon in the deck at all. I mean, not even several years ago, not now, not since it's been hit by the ban list. Now, a lot of people would often say to me, run 3 Red Eyes Darkness Metal and things like that. And when I was younger, when I first got into the game, I was really prideful. I had a cool deck, I was kicking everybody's backside and that sort of thing. And it's normal for a youngster to be like that, to be quite proud of a deck they think is unique until, of course, they get kicked by the bigger boys and girls and get put in their place, basically, which is what happened to me in Mad for Miniatures, to say the least. But I still refused to run Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon because I agree it was a very good card, it was a cool card, but it just wasn't my playstyle. I felt like it didn't synergize, I think that's the word, correct me if I'm wrong. It just didn't synergize with the way I was wanting to build the deck. I wasn't wanting to go like swarm, 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 bam, that's it, game over. I mean, yes, Blue Eyes Dragons are pretty much power beat decks and rely on getting out quickly to, overwhelm the opponent and everything, but I felt like Red Eyes Darkness Metal was quite a far too easy route, and I'm not one for taking the easy route quite a lot of the time. I just want to be different. There's always going to be that 1 or 2 duelists who are always going to be different from the rest. And a couple of years ago when I started my YouTube, and I stuck up my first couple of Blue Eyes Dragons videos and everything, I constantly got that comment and I was raging, and I did a rant video about people telling me how to run this and run that, and it's like I got so annoyed with it. I even got one person saying your deck is absolutely shameful, it cannot compete against all other Blue Eyes decks and everything, and it's like, well, yeah, I don't care, I don't play like that. I don't play to win, I play for fun, I play to do my absolute best with the deck, and I've built it the way I want to build it, so it's, it's my deck, not yours, at the end of the day. That's something you have to remember, is when you try and dictate to somebody about building a deck, no matter what kind of deck it is, you have to remember it's not your deck. If you're going to build that deck by telling someone else how to do it, then build it yourself. It's like, you're not the person running that deck. If you want to run it the way you want to run it, then just build it yourself and show how it's done. Don't actually get pissy and say, tell people explicitly how to do this and how to do that, and you must run this and you must run that. I mean, nowadays there's quite a few people who say if you want to play competitively, you must run like a couple of Max C, you must run several effect failure, you must run these hand traps, you must run these cards, or you know, just to stay afloat and everything to do well in the meta. And because of the meta and how the meta is coming out today, as people have dubbed it the hand trapped age apparently, because obviously it's full of hand traps and everything, you can understand why, especially with a lot of decks. But there's some decks out there that aren't affected by hand traps, like Dark World. I learned the hard way that Dark World isn't really affected by Effect Veiler. Okay, excuse the pun there, but it's not affected by Effect Veiler, but it is affected by Light and Darkness Dragon, for example. And Light and Darkness Dragon is probably a better choice for me because I'm a dragon player than running Effect Veiler, which is used by the majority of the masses, to say the least. So yeah, it's all about taste and preference, and remembering, you know, what is this deck trying to do? Is it trying to win? Is it just trying to play fun? You know, it just, you know, so when you see a deck out there and you you think it might need some help, then, you know, give the advice, but don't actually tell somebody how to run a deck when you're not running it yourself. You know, there's, as I said, there's a fine line between offering advice and being a total idiot about it, you know, ranting on about something that isn't really yours. As I said, as I said, the majority of people will run a mainstream deck or a meta deck or whatever, or have a staple build for most decks, but there will always be that few people who will come in with alternate build or a variable build that doesn't fit in with the meta. Most people are okay with that. I mean, most of the guys at the locals know not to mention Red Eyes Darkness Metal to me because they know I'll flat out refuse to run it. I mean, one of them keeps jokingly mentioning it all the time to me, but obviously I can take that as a joke now because I can understand it's a very good card. It can still help the deck if I wanted to by throwing one in, but I just choose not to because it's just personal preference, to say the least. So to people who just like troll other people's decks out there, or just to anybody who plays really competitively or doesn't really understand the fun side of the game, you know, just back off basically and just let those people be. You know, you have to remember it's their deck at the end of the day, not yours. So don't, if you want to build that deck your way, then just build it yourself. Don't tell other people how to do it. Remember, if a deck is built completely different from a mainstream meta deck or a mainstream deck that you know of, you know, just accept the fact that there is going to be other variants out there. There's, you know, there's not just one set build of a deck out there. There never is. I mean, even if there's 50 people and about 40 of them play the same deck with pretty much the same text and the same standard build, there's going to be at least 10 of them that are going to be completely different, you know, that have different texts and everything, because that's just how things work. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to personal preference and what you like best for your deck, what you think works well with your deck or synergizes with your deck the most. And don't let anybody put you down about how you run your deck. If you want to build it a way that you're comfortable with and that you're happy with, you go right ahead. I mean, you guys see my channel. There's a Blue Eyes Dragons deck nearly every month or two because I'm constantly getting new ideas on how to try and make the deck work better and how to improve it even further. Because especially if you play competitively or in the meta, you're constantly having to update decks that need updating. Even most mainstream meta decks nowadays, Insectors and Chaos Dragons and everything, yes, they got hit by the ban list pretty badly, but they still updated and they're still doing pretty good in this format, to say the least, even though a lot of people expected them to die out and everything. But no, they're still doing good. I mean, look at the Michigan YCSs and is it Seattle, I think it was? I might be wrong about that. You know, a lot of these competitive decks were back still doing really well at these events and everything. So yeah, you just don't underestimate decks and everything, because there's been a couple of times where some people are like, oh, your deck can't win because it's not built the meta way or it's not built that way, and then they get surprised when I actually beat them. It may only be one duel, I might not win the match, but if I beat them once, it's like, yeah, don't underestimate it. It can do well you know, if you've got the better deck, then you've got the better deck. You know, I've got no problem with that. But if I do beat you once, then I know my deck's capable of maybe defeating you in a match next time. You never know. So you just don't underestimate those kind of variable decks, basically. Right, is there anything else I want to say? I think that's enough of my rambling for the moment anyway, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you guys in the next video. So till then, take care and see you later. Bye bye!